The 2025 session of the Indiana General Assembly began as a marathon and ended with a sprint as the final round of bills crossed the finish line in the early hours of April 25th. As area lawmakers are still catching their breath from all the State House racing, we bring you a first ever conversation with a number of House and Senate members from across Northeast Indiana on this special edition of Primetime. And thanks for joining us. I'm Bruce Haines, and if you have ever wondered what the Northeast Indiana Legislative Delegation looks like, if you're a visual learner, the answer is right here on your screen this evening, and this is still not everybody. We have so many who are with us. We have 6 state representatives, 6 senators joining us from the Indiana House, House Majority Leader Matt Lehman, House Democratic Leader Phil GiaQuinta, Assistant Majority Caucus Chair Dave Abbott, and State Representatives Dave Heine, Tony Issa, and Kyle Miller. And from the Senate, we have the Assistant Majority Floor Leader Liz Brown, the Assistant President Pro Tem Sue Glick, Majority Caucus Chair Travis Holdman, Assistant Majority Caucus Chair Dr. Tyler Johnson, and State Senators Justin Busch and Andy Say. Thank you. Welcome to you all. After saying your titles, we have run out of time. We would have continued, but we took more hours. It struck me in doing this that we have more than a few persons in leadership roles with the Senate and the House from this region. And it's kind of a toss-up question to the audience. So let me ask you, how important is that, perhaps, that Northeast Indiana is so well represented in the legislature? Travis, let me start with you on that one.
Well, a lot of that comes with seniority, and the longer you're in the Senate or the House, you gravitate towards a leadership position. And for Northeast Indiana, it's great that we have good representation from Northeast Indiana that are in leadership roles in both the House and the Senate. So it's something that really benefits the region and our own constituents.
Yeah. Phil, how about you from your perspective?
Well, I think it's a nice advantage for Northeast Indiana. Really, all the decisions are made by everybody here anyway, so it's kind of great we're all together. But with Representative Lehman being Majority Leader, he certainly has the ear of Speaker Houston, which is great. Myself, some of the roles I get to do is committee assignments, and so I've got some influence there as to where folks sit, what committees they sit on, and that's helpful for us, helpful for our caucus. Hopefully I've been of some help to Northeast Indiana in this role now, completing my 7th session as Minority Leader.
Yeah. And Dave, you moved into the role of Assistant Majority Caucus Chair. Talk about that position.
Well, that's an assistant position to Representative Greg Storald, who is the caucus chair. So we fill in, we're a backup when needed, if needed. And then we also have some other duties we do behind the scenes. We pick up some scholarships, awards that we do, and we do some other small duties like that. But we're there to assist and work with the caucus on policy and agendas that we speak about on a daily basis.
And across the chambers, Sue, you're the Assistant President Pro Tem, so I assume if the President Pro Tem takes the afternoon off, you're on.
I am so far down the pecking order. Occasionally they put me in the chair to bang the gavel, which is a great honor, but very little import.
Well, I'm sure that all contributes, and I had heard it said that indeed because of leadership, seniority, connection, this Northeast Indiana area is most blessed with those in those leader roles, as well as those who are supporting that activity on both sides of the aisle. It's got to be hard to have just, say, 1 minute to reflect on the last 4 months at the State House, but Matt, you're going to be up on this one. Let me ask you, and I'll then ask Phil as well, from the House perspective, about your sense of the recent session.
Yeah, I'll be honest with you, it's probably one of the hardest sessions we've had. When you deal with we kind of got a bad fiscal review in April, which set our budget to a point of cutting $2 billion out of a budget we thought was going to be tight to begin with. So that was tough. Senate Bill 1, which sucked a lot of the energy out of the room, kind of were the two issues that took most of the focus of the session. I think we attempted to do some things around health care. We just keep nipping at the edges, I think, on some of that. Hopefully some of it actually gets the ball moving. We did some things with expanding the housing we've done in the past. So there's been other things that happened, but it's been kind of a rough year when it just comes to everything kind of begins and ends with the budget. It's a 2-year budget. And so that was always kind of the thing in the back of your head saying, hey, what's going to come in April? What's going to come in April? And then we got some really disappointing news. So we'll see. It was not an easy last 2 weeks of the session for that reason, but I think we actually crossed the finish line with committed to the things we want to commit to, and we think are going to benefit Hoosiers.
Yeah. Phil, from...
You know, when we came into the session, we kept hearing we're not going to have the money, maybe the money that we're used to having with regards to the federal dollars that were there. And then in mid-April, I guess it was when the forecast came out, $2.4 billion shortfall. Really kind of frankly reflecting on what was happening at the federal level and really, frankly, not knowing what's going to happen 6 months, 12 months, 18 months down the road. Mm-hmm. So it puts you in a tough spot. But the forecast, of course, is it's a snapshot in time, but it's all that we have to go off of. So we have to take it from there. I kind of felt like must be these Senate bills, Matt. That's all I can say is because it felt like we had. It felt like a budget year twice, a budget session twice with Senate Bill 1 and I think it was Senate Bill 518 were both heard on the same day. A lot of testimony from all kinds of folks with regard from local government to educators and so on. And then of course, 1001, the final details, it took about a week to hammer those out and see where we ended up. So we'll maybe get more into that a little bit later, but it was certainly rather exhausting, and no doubt the folks that are on the budget writing teams got thrown for quite a loop there with the budget forecast, and really one that I don't think I haven't been a part of before. So it was quite different.
Yeah, and on that Senate side, Liz, everything, everywhere, all at once. As far as budget is concerned?
Sure. I mean, we started the session with cuts already. As the governor's budget, the House introduced version, the Senate, and then to get the forecast, another 5% cuts when you think you've been pretty lean and funding what you need to fund, and no extra fluff in there. So yeah, that was really tough. And at the same time, maintaining our K-12 funding. Most of the schools will see a modest increase, unlike some other entities and agencies that just saw cuts. So yeah, there were a lot of tough decisions.
Yeah. And Travis, you're on appropriations as well, so you had some midnight oil, maybe some 1 a.m. in the morning oil burning too.
Yes, we had some late nights. I think Senate Bill 1 was my bill. I was the author. And I had told the governor in a conversation with him early on that the bill as it was being introduced, which was his version of Senate Bill 1 for property tax relief, would not be the bill that came out of the Senate. And I just wanted to be real honest with him because it was $4.2 billion of tax relief for the taxpayer, but at the same time it was a 4.2 tax cut for local entities, schools, cities, towns, counties, townships. So, and I kept repeating the phrase that we have to walk that fine line to find what's best for the taxpayer and at the same time keep local government running. And so we ended up coming short of what the governor wanted, but we ended up with him agreeing with us to come up with a $1.2 billion cut and a $1.2 billion relief package for the taxpayer. And it's going to take about 6 years for all of that to come to fruition because it eases into that change and changes the whole dynamic of the tax system for property tax in the state of Indiana.
Do you see any thing coming from SB 1 this year that will then want to be part of, say, the short session in 2026? Will this be minor adjustments, or is there an opportunity for such a thing at that level?
Oh, absolutely. There'll be, we've already identified a number of things we'll have to work on, and that's why moving the end date out 6 years gives us time to fix some of those things, and even some of the pieces of the legislation that will be implemented in 2 years, we have time to work on some exceptions perhaps, or changes that need to be made in that short run, just in the next 2 years, before it really starts to roll over that 6-year period.
I've seen a couple pieces of reporting where the expression is about how SB 1 cuts property taxes. Local governments are maybe now looking at hiking income taxes. In response, it's a $300 savings on the one hand, and it could be something else with another hand. Is it too early to get a sense of what first returns on the legislation are creating?
Well, they don't have to automatically increase income tax. They have an option to do that, to backfill with income tax. But there's one piece of that equation missing, of cuts to income tax increases, and that middle piece is becoming more efficient. Many local units are taking a look at what they're doing to see if in fact that's what local government should be doing, and if those are the services that should be provided. Do we have too many people? Do we have too many services? I think it requires folks to take a good hard look rather than just automatically run to an income tax increase. That isn't necessary in many cases, because there are opportunities to become more efficient than what they have been in the past.
Monitoring this on the House side, Dave, on Ways and Means, what kind of takeaways have you been collecting with the process of developing SB 1, and for that matter, 1001?
Well, as Leader Lehman said, last 4 months have been tough. Probably toughest of my, I've been down there now nine sessions, or 9 years, and it's been by far the toughest of any year. And everyone in this room, you guys were a lot more fun back in January than you were last 2 weeks of April. But I will say, though, that if you want to talk a little bit about property taxes, and I think Senator Holdman did a great job authoring that bill. There were some unrealistic goals, I think, set by our governor, but I think that we did, I think, a very, very good job, and I think it'll play out, and it'll be good for all Hoosiers, and especially Hoosiers here in Northeast Indiana. In terms of the budget, we had to make a lot of cuts. $2.4 billion revenue loss in the forecast. There were some long nights, but again, I think we all came together, and the difference, I think, is we all worked together, both sides of the aisle, and then also the House and the Senate worked together, and it wasn't just somebody sitting in the corner say, here's what we're going to do. All the meetings, everyone was together, we worked together, and so it wasn't a surprise when the final outcome came. It was all worked on together, and I'm pretty proud of that. And I just want to say thank you to the Senate side, did a nice job, and thank you to both sides of the aisle here today.
Usually with a budget passage, there is a little more excitement. Even budget writer Ryan Mishler, Senator from Mishawaka, said, I think the best way to look at this budget is it could have been much worse.
Yeah.
And from Phil, you and your colleagues' perspective, certainly opportunities for other actions perhaps going forward, but $2 billion is still a lot of zeros to the left of the decimal.
Yeah, no, it certainly isn't easy, and there obviously difficult decisions that had to be made. I would have preferred to go different route on different things with regards to, for me personally, public education funding. When I run the math, run the numbers, for community schools, it gets less than 2% increase each year over the next 2 years. And then if they were, put a referendum, that's a big if, but if they put the referendum, they would have to potentially, I say potentially because I can't remember exactly if the charter schools in the area would have to share or not. They may not qualify, but that'll happen throughout the state. That if school districts want to feel the need to pass a referendum and the charter schools in their area that qualify, they'd have to share that revenue. So my concern there was that the school districts may have to ask for more than what they might need, knowing that they're going to have to share it with the charter schools in the area, which will then just get passed along to the taxpayer and onto property taxes. The other thing too is Senate Bill 1 was when we talk about local governments, it's just not what you think of, City Hall. There are school districts as well that will lose some money over the next 3 years, and so yeah, they'll have to take a hard look at things there as well. So I don't know how many pages the budget is. It's a lot. It's a lot. We could sit here and talk about that all day, but not by no means easy decisions for anyone. That's for sure. And you know what? We'll be back there in 7 months or so, and we'll see what happens. We typically don't open the budget in a short session, but things turn around, get better. That might be an opportunity to do that.
And with that spirit of optimism, Sarah has asked a question which has been on our minds here. Sarah is a viewer for PBS Fort Wayne, and just want to linger on it just a little. But of course, coming out of the budget discussions and trying to get something in the right place, state funding for public media was removed from the final budget. I wonder if there's any comment on that. If it was a matter of still needing another 3.675 somewhere, or was it born of something else? We're a happy bunch, but 12% of your revenue, 400,000. But just curious about the loss of public media funding, and for that matter, the opportunity then to find a way back into the budget process in 18 to 24 months or so from now. Dave.
I guess since the budget starts in the House, I'll try to answer that. We had to make a decision, and K through 12 public education, we wanted to make sure that we had funding there and we had increases there. And then we also felt very, very strongly that we needed to take care of the Department of Child Services and FSSA, and then obviously Medicaid. We had to take care of those that were most vulnerable, and we did that. And when we did that, you're looking at a huge portion of the budget that we had to take care of. And remember, we had a $2.4 billion shortfall. So that's where we had to make some tough cuts. And it's not easy. That's why I didn't sleep very much. But that's what happened.
Well, we're obviously very philosophically supportive in doing this and bringing this conversation forward, but I know viewers will be in their living rooms and dens and just wanting to be sure, did he ask about that? And let's keep the partnership going so we can continue to find whatever that way forward would be.
Well, if I can, Bruce, I think one thing that Phil said is that, we don't typically open the budget in the short session. But I also think we had to make some very tough decisions at the last minute. Some of the stuff got cut out at the last hour type of thing. And I think that if what is happening, you take that snapshot of time now, it does not look good. But if things get better, if you want to say blame the tariffs or as part of it, if that works and we start to see a better bounce and our economy grows, then our revenue is going to be off. I mean, our $2.4 billion loss may not be a loss. And I think that brings into the conversation of, okay, what do we bring back to the table to talk about? So I think I've told people there's nothing off the table in the short session if the economy has improved greatly, because we had to make some tough decisions, and it wasn't easy, but
Right.
we're not in that position.
Let me ask you this question, because with tight time frames and tighter fiscal projections in the consideration of some measures, Has there been any discussion in Indiana of moving to a full-time legislative structure as opposed to the citizens' legislature?
I quit.
If you want to take a poll of this group, it's not going to be a good response. The answer is no.
I hear murmuring. Let me ask Sue and Liz about that one. Sue, go ahead.
Well, I don't think anyone here, I would be surprised if anyone jumped forward and said, we want to do this full-time. I think the pressure that's put on us from January to mid-March in a short session, or January, the end of April in a long session, keeps our focus, if you will, on doing our job and getting back to our regular jobs, to our regular lives. It is intense, and you can languish. We only have to view what happens in Washington, that they kick the can down the road, if you will, when it comes to things like putting together a budget, addressing some of the issues that are key. I think in Indiana, we address the idea of we have needs, we want to meet those needs. There are some people who were left behind, some programs that I think all of us have pet projects we'd like to go with, or institutions we'd like to protect or have seen funded at a greater level. But I think realistically, we have a constitutional mandate to balance our budget, and we're unsure exactly what's happening with the federal government, how many grants and programs will be passing through to us. And so in Indiana, we've always lived within our means, and we intend to keep that going. And we're going to do it expeditiously. We're going to get home when we need to get home. We don't want to be coming back midsummer in a special session or addressing things we don't need to address. I don't see an appetite for a full-time legislature.
Liz?
Yeah, I think that we get our work done, and the bills that don't make it through, maybe they just weren't quite ready yet. A good idea, but the state's not going to live or die on that particular bill that doesn't make it through. But also the whole idea of going back home. DC is full-time. Some state legislatures are full-time. We're not. So everybody goes back to their neighborhoods, to their jobs, to the grocery store on a regular basis and meets constituents, and that's good. This should not be our whole life, and I think if we were full-time, it would be easy to delay decision-making and linger, and this way we really have to be focused.
Yeah. I'm focusing on some time, and we're going to do a little segment inside the show that we like to call 60-Second Spotlight. There should be music right here. But the idea is, and I'm going to start with Senator Zay, you have 1 minute on one measure that you were proud of being a part in this passing session that just wrapped up. Ready,
Well,
set, go.
I had a number of initiatives, but one I worked all the way to the end, which I think Representative Lehman can attest to, and certainly my colleagues, is pharmacy benefit manager reform. And we had a study done last year that exposed some of the issues around that, and really tried to champion that for the state cause this year. And thought we got to a pretty fair landing point that might make a difference moving forward. That in and of itself will take some time as well. But we've tiptoed in and around that for a long, long time, and I think we have some substance this year that will make a difference.
Senator Busch?
Yeah, I think there's a couple of bills I worked in the healthcare space that I think offers transparency, lowers the cost of care, and increases access. We were able to add a big chunk of doctors and no longer have non-competes. In the state of Indiana, we have 87 of the 92 counties with severe doctor shortage. We want good doctors, and colleagues of Dr. Johnson over here to know that the state of Indiana is a great place to live, work, and raise a family. So if you're here, stay here. And if you'd like to come to Indiana, we're open for business. And also Senate Bill 3, a very quiet bill that somehow made it through as a priority bill without a lot of fanfare, but will require insurance companies to act in the best financial interest of their actual clients, not just their shareholders. So I think over the years, we'll see that hopefully drive down the cost of care for small business owners throughout Indiana.
Yeah. Senator Johnson, you were deeply involved in a number of measures on the health front.
Yeah, I mean, healthcare is definitely my wheelhouse, and along those lines, Senate Bill 480 is a measure I've been working on the last several years, actually, on prior authorization reform. Probably going to be something that moves across the country, is regulating the insurance industry and how they interact with doctors and hospitals to really help patients get the care that their doctor says they need, and frankly, they've already paid for. And so we took every common sense measure we could think of and put them all in the same bill, and thankfully got it across the finish line this year, and it's heading to the governor's desk to sign. So pretty proud of that measure.
Yeah. On the House side, Tony, Isa, I can't wait to hear the answer to this one because this was your first budget session. Congratulations.
Thank you.
What were your?
Okay.
Yeah, that's right. What were some of the takeaways for you from these last 4 months?
Well, when I got done drinking water through a fire hose and realizing that, wow, there's a lot more going on in local government, it was such a pleasure to be able to talk to these people that have the wisdom, that have accomplished so much. The relationship building, I think, was crucial for me, getting to know, understanding the process. You know, I want to reiterate something you said earlier. Northeastern is considered one of the most powerful coalition in the state, and this is not by chance. These are very intelligent, very aggressive, very strong-minded people, not holding back Liz Brown, of course. But anyways, it's been an honor, and I can't wait for next session. But I was so thankful to be home.
There you go.
So thankful.
Can I tell you one thing that Tony
Please.
did?
Sure.
He bought a freezer for our office, and he also owns Scoops up in Angola, and he brought up Scoops ice cream. So we had Scoops ice cream on some of those late nights. We didn't invite the senators, but all the House
just finding out
people
about
here
this now, right?
Yeah, no,
Duly noted.
had Scoops ice cream every after a long day. So thank you, Tony.
That's an honor.
I'm sensing a new underwriting contract coming soon. And Kyle, for you, this also still has a lot of newness about it for the work in the State House. What was it for you and your legislation?
Yeah, it was my second budget session, and it was very different from the first. And I feel like I'm in my third year now, and I feel like I have progressed to the point where I am actually influential. I am actually influencing legislation and the process. Whereas the first couple of sessions, you know, as Tony found this year, you're getting your feet under you. You're figuring out the process. You're developing those relationships. And so I was very proud to be able to get my first bill across the finish line this year. It has to do with cigar retailers being able to sell off-site at fundraisers and events and things like that. Good public policy, as we found as it went through the House and also over to the Senate. And so I was very proud and happy to be able to shepherd that through the process. And it's a unique experience to be able to do that from start to finish.
Absolutely. I wonder when you find yourself in this place with the delegation, you know, the power of this. And Tony, you're referencing my next question. When it comes to being a delegation around bills that can impact Northeast Indiana, how does that communication work? You have your district obligations, you have your day-to-day obligations, you know who all is around you regionally in the political lineup going into the legislative season, but how do you coordinate? And I'm going to look at the chief coordinator.
Okay, well, didn't know I was chief coordinator. I'll say this, and that is, we may have political differences here and there, but one thing I think that unites us all is we want to see what's best for not just our districts, but for Northeast Indiana. And to do that, I think we talk a lot. We have a weekly breakfast every Wednesday morning. We have breakfast together, and we kind of, hey, what's going on? Whether some of the stuff going on in the Senate, here's some stuff going on in the House. Other than that, we just visit. We get to know each other better. And I've had other members of the legislature come to me and say, how is it that you guys coalesce so well, and you seem to get things done? And I said, it's because of the fact you've got Phil in the position he's in. And when we have an issue around Northeast Indiana, we do coalesce a lot of times. Even if I don't get everything I want, it's kind of what's the best for our area. And I think it shows with where we're at as a delegation and where we're at as part of Northeast Indiana that we've gotten a lot done.
Yeah. One example of that, I looked up the legislation related to the Maumee Watershed Development Commission. And so as a visual effect, if you have had any involvement with the Watershed Commission bill, would you raise your hand? There you go. Look at this. It's a team effort. And another one to the gentleman in the back row regarding the work on film and media production tax credits. If you were involved in that legislation, raise your hand. Here we go again. Yeah. That seems to say something. Phil, Dave, what does it say to you both? Go ahead.
You know, I think a lot of us, I think we come into this looking, you know, how do we make the region grow? We've talked a lot about, you know, Fort Wayne is sort of the central part of it, and when you know Fort Wayne does well, the rest of the region then does well. You know, one thing that I think we've all sort of, at least we've tried to get behind, Representative Heine's been really spearheading, and that's, you know, Highway 30. And, you know, we know the economic benefits. I'll let Dave speak to it as well, but I think it's just one example. You know, it kind of goes through from the Ohio line all the way, you know, past Warsaw and all the way to, you know, the state there, but it's just something that economically it will, I think, benefit. Did I get that right?
Yeah.
All the way past, all the way over there.
All the way.
Valpo, we're at all the way
Way over there.
Yeah, and
That
and-
direction.
West Indiana.
We don't care much beyond Warsaw.
yeah, exactly. And so, but no, I think it's one of those where I think we've all, as a team, have come together to support that, and we'll continue to do so.
And Dave, I know that's been one of yours in the top.
Yeah, I used to have 2 of the townships in Allen County. I was born and raised here, so this is home to me. This is my hometown. And, you know, I learned really quickly, the name of this group used to be called the Northeast Indiana Mafia, and that was for a reason, because of the leadership with...
I thought it was because I was Italian.
I think it's GiaQuinta. That's what it is.
Well, and to that point, these 2 here remind me of Ronald Reagan and Tip O'Neill. We can fight on the floor, but we have dinner together. And
Yeah,
I think that's what's key to us, is we not just on the job, but off hours. We still get together. We go to dinners, things like that, and I think we depend on each other. I mean, it feels like a family. It doesn't feel like other legislators. We just feel like a group of people that are serving our state. So I think that's a bond that you don't see all across the state.
Yeah. Let's do a little more 60-second spotlight stuff. And Representative Heine, let me ask you, a piece of legislation that you can look back on and be happy about.
Well, I'm not looking back, I'm looking forward. It's, road funding was very, very, very important, because we talk about US 30. The problem is our governor is from Jasper, Indiana. They want to do a similar project called the Mid-States Corridor down there. We need a bridge across the Ohio River. They want to put 6 lanes for 70 across the state, 6 lanes for 65. So all of that costs money. And the road funding bill that HB 1461, that everybody voted for, that will provide the dollars that we'll need to make US 30 happen, hopefully. But now it's up to all of us on this panel here tonight. You know, we have to stick together, and we have to be a unit. And like the Secretary of Transportation, Matt Ubelar, told me, goes, you know, the wheel that squeaks the loudest gets greased. And everyone I'm sitting here with, we know how to squeal. So, right, senators?
There you go.
That's an
So we'll see what happens, but that's our goal.
That's right. Let's try a 60-second one with Senator Brown. You're involved in parental rights, certainly, would be one, but you may have others.
Yeah, that was a bill that moved pretty quickly and easily, which was a pleasant surprise, and just sort of right-sized parents vis-a-vis whether it's DCS or school systems. And I think everybody understood that it was kind of time. We'd kind of swung the other way. So that wasn't as controversial probably as it would have been a few years ago. And, you know, frankly, I've got good partners. I've worked with Representative Lehman for the last couple of years now on some AI and cybersecurity bills. So we passed one enforcing and pushing best practices on our local units of government. And again, pleasantly surprised, no pushback at all. I think they're all trying to work to that. And at the same time, the Indiana Office of Technology is ready and willing and able to help them. So I think those were good wins. And it's nice to have a partnership in the House where, you know, your House sponsor is going to shepherd it and not do anything bad to it.
Take good care of it, see that it
Yes.
gets fed and watered.
Like a little
and
baby,
you just kind of
yes.
move it along. Yeah, right. Senator Holdman, how about you, sir?
Well, I think the one thing that we can all be proud of is what we've done for small businesses and for farmers in particular with the increase in the de minimis level for business personal property tax. Starting in 27, that will go to $2 million. So if your business personal property is assessed at less than $2 million, you pay no business personal property tax on new equipment coming in. And the 30% floor, which is it would take too long for me to explain what that is, but that eventually will go away. And any new equipment that comes in is not subject to the 30% floor. So you're not stuck paying property tax on something for the life of your life or perhaps the life of that piece of equipment. Right. So I think that's a great win for small business and farmers in the state of Indiana.
Yeah. Any bill that has the word water in it goes through Senator Glick, it seems. And you have so many, and they are also related to conservation efforts. There was long-haul water pipes and being sure there's approval, but pick one of those or other that you're pleased with this session.
Well, being involved in the Natural Resources Committee in the Senate and being very involved in water levels, one of the things we try and do, all of us, is balance the interests of everyone concerned. Big push right now to bring these data centers into Indiana. They're large operations, but they're huge water consumers. And so concern was that if they consumed too much water or drew too much water out of the aquifer, that it would deprive ongoing businesses or operations such as livestock operations, irrigation systems, and even municipal water supplies. So we put some legislation in that says if someone is shut off or they see their water being diminished, that there's a process by which they can notify the appropriate office in the Department of Natural Resources, that immediate response can be given within days or hours, if you will. They have to investigate and make sure that that significant water user who's taking all the water away has to share or provide for that individual or that operation that's being deprived. And we don't want livestock going without. We don't want farming operations to be unsettled because we have brought in new industry. Everything we do in the legislature is a balanced system. We have to balance the needs of part of the state with the needs of other people in the state. We have to balance the agriculture community and the rest of Indiana. We have to make sure that no one area gets too much and no other area of our society gets too little. That's what we looked at with the water, and that's what we did overall, I think, in much of our legislation, is to balance so that the needs are equal and as so far as we can do it is fair, so that we share the resources, which we have plenty, we share them and balance them out.
One thing that always made me smile through the course of the session, Matt, was the notion of a small modular nuclear reactor. And it just sounded like something I could order on Amazon. And it would show up and I'd have my house powered for Christmas and beyond, but that's not what that was at all. I don't know if that perhaps was one of your signature pieces.
My name was on some of those just because I'm a huge believer in the expansion of nuclear energy. I think it's the energy of the future. I really do. So I'm glad I was a part of that. I would say, for me, I kind of took a different approach this year. I decided not to carry a lot of legislation on my own, help others. That turned into a bit of a help too many people. I was glad we had a bill that came out of Senate Bill 5, which dealt with contracting, being more transparent as the executive branch and as other elected officials need to be more transparent in their contracting. So there's going to be more put on the portal, more responsibility of no bids, no bid contracts will be a thing of the past in a lot of areas. So that I helped with that in the House. But I want to, you asked a question about the full-time legislature, because I think what you heard, you have medical, you have legal, you have ag, I'm insurance. we all bring our expertise to the table. I think you lose that when you have a full-time legislature, because now my focus is the legislature, and I think it's good to go back, live in your world, bring those ideas back to the General Assembly. I think that's why we've gotten good legislation on a wide spectrum of issues.
Right.
And if I can add on to that, Representative Miller's bill was from a constituent. And when we talk about going back and being back in our own districts and listening to what our constituents have to say, sometimes that's where we get the best legislation.
Yeah.
Best ideas.
You've been shepherding some bills within your caucus as well. I think there was one listed related to Medicaid and health care for someone who was being offered a policy that they would be eligible for that support regardless of their disability, something along that line.
Who's our Medicaid expert on the panel?
Zay.
Tyler.
Senator
Tyler.
Johnson?
The Senate.
There were a number of bills touching Medicaid this year. A couple of them in particular, we're talking about who all fits that eligibility requirement. And so you have family members and you have caretakers and those kind of things, and making sure some of them would still be eligible even if they didn't meet the specific requirements. So there were pieces on that. There are also a number of discussions on Medicaid that really talked about making sure the dollars are there for the patients that really need them.
Yep.
FSSA is one of our biggest costs of a state, and we knew that money was going to be tight, but we also want to just be good stewards of that money. So everybody, of course, wants state dollars, and Medicaid's one of those spaces where we tend to start paying for a lot of different things. And so trying to rein some of that in so that the folks that really need it have it available to them was a big piece of this session also.
Yeah. We have coming up on limited time even for this very special program, if you can believe it. But I do want to ask, and for those who are interested in sharing, I think viewers at home would be interested. You talk about citizens legislature and balancing demands in Indy at home with constituents and your caucus colleagues. What motivated you to seek public service in the state legislature?
Well, I think all of us up here like to solve problems. And I think it's fun to do. You know, I've taken off just real quick on the road funding bill. You know, that's something that I think a lot of us, and as a caucus, we have 30, we don't always get to influence legislation as far as passage goes, but you kind of needed us a little bit on that one, and that's where now the formula basically, I think, is going to be much better when it comes to road funding for the city of Fort Wayne. We're going to be counting lanes instead of just a road being 2 lanes, and so it's going to actually count each lane, which will be more money for the city of Fort Wayne. That's something that I think all cities, frankly, have been asking for, and it's just a small problem. But it's just, I think, to me, that's the best part about being a legislature, is solving problems.
Yeah. Tony.
I would tell you that for me, it was kind of a selfish perspective, being in a rural community, wanting to get energy up to northeastern corner, wink, wink, everybody. Also, making sure that there's a reason for my kids who are younger to want to stay there. And in rural America, how many times do kids leave because there's nothing there for them? So development, infrastructure needs, so it was motivated through that.
I would agree with that. I mean, it's really public service at its intimacy. I mean, I was very active locally before I got in. The challenge, as some of my other counterparts, certainly Dr. Johnson and Tony have, which I'm graduating out of, is having those kids and families back home. It's tough to be gone for 4 months and juggle in and out of being a good father, being a good parent, and sometimes making and missing ball games and events at school. And that was a tremendous challenge for me my first 8-9 years, as my kids were very active in their school pursuits. But now we have a little bit more balance of life as my wife's gone on into retirement, and we're empty nesters. So it's a change, but it was definitely a challenge over the last many years and working through that. But it's the dedication and commitment to solving the big problems and to being engaged, and as Representative Issa said, really being a voice in my neighborhood for rural America, where sometimes we're overseen. And it's great to be a part of a team like this, which is when you come in up here, it's really an understatement. It's kind of present, and to have a shoulder, to have a thought process and an experience to lean on. It's been a very rewarding opportunity to be a state senator.
Yeah.
Couldn't be prouder.
Let me ask the gentleman to your right, too, about your motivation for joining this special calling.
This august body that I'm a part of
There
now,
you go,
of course.
especially in April. Yeah.
You know, I spent most of my 20s in Washington. I've worked for 3 U.S. senators and President Bush. My parents instilled a great sense of service. But for me, having that time in D.C. compared to what we do here, we actually get things done. We pass a balanced budget. You know, we work across the aisle. I was honored to carry my good friend Kyle Miller's bill through the Senate. And we can actually look through accomplishments that we get done in those 4 months. So for me, I think there might be other opportunities for other office, but I really believe in this delegation and what we can do for the state of Indiana.
Nodding heads in the front row, Liz. I want to ask you, and then, of course, Travis as well.
Yeah, I mean, I started as a local city council because I was at the other end of the perspective. I was going to be freed up from driving carpool and was looking for something to do. So I'm kind of the other end. I'm not the major breadwinner in my family, and I look at people, for example, in my caucus like Dr. Johnson, and it's impressive. I mean, the amount of time he gives and drives home almost every night to see his kids' games, things like that. That's really hard. And obviously, he's very good at what he does in both his daytime and session time jobs, but I'm fortunate I didn't have that issue.
Yeah. And Travis, 30 seconds on this one.
In many ways, I feel like it's a calling, that it's many times a God thing that put us in the places where we are. But in many cases, it's like hurting 150 senior class presidents also.
That's a good way to put it.
That's about it.
We have a final word. I'm going to let Matt Lehman wrap this up.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess I would say this is, on behalf of this delegation, first of all, Bruce, thank you for what you've done. You've been a gracious host when we've been on here on a Friday night. I've had people say, you give up a Friday night to go on the show, and I said, I only do that every so often. Bruce is there every Friday night. So thank you for what you do on that. I don't know if now's the time we're supposed to do this, Bruce.
Yep.
You've got a minute?
I do. I can.
All right, Kyle.
Step over.
We're gonna put you here in the middle.
All right, I'll hang here. We will. My goodness.
And I'll kind of turn this over to Kyle because he's holding the.
Yeah, Bruce, you've been a pillar in the community, not only in the community but also here at PBS Fort Wayne, and we wanted to honor that legacy here in Fort Wayne with a joint resolution between the House and the Senate. So there are a lot of whereases in here. You've had a long career, but I'll read just a little bit. A House concurrent resolution honoring Bruce Haines upon his retirement from the Fort Wayne Public Broadcasting Service. Whereas Bruce Haines has been president and general manager of Fort Wayne Public Broadcasting Service since 2008, and he plans to retire this year after more than 40 years of broadcasting. Whereas after spending 21 years leading Northeast Indiana's public radio organization, Bruce Haines joined PBS Fort Wayne in the leadership role he's kept for the last 17 years. Whereas during his tenure, the station moved from analog to high-definition operations, securing a $3.1 million capital campaign to upgrade all station production and operations to HD. Whereas Bruce Haines helped guide the station through the COVID-19 pandemic and was able to adapt to the novel uncertainties he and his crew faced. Whereas PBS remains the only locally owned and operated full-power TV service in the area due to Bruce's efforts, and whereas Bruce Haines has spent the last 17 years growing PBS Fort Wayne into a modern broadcasting service, able to reach new audiences without sacrificing the community connections so important in public broadcasting and continuing the mission of the network. Therefore, be it resolved by the House of Representatives of the General Assembly of the State of Indiana, the Senate concurring, that the Indiana General Assembly honors Bruce Haines upon his retirement from PBS Fort Wayne. Congratulations, Bruce.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce.
I'm not sure you can cry on television.
You can.
Folks at home may want to move into your screens a little more carefully to read the fine print, but this has truly been such not even a labor of love, but it has helped my learning curve being an out-of-stater to start with. So you've adopted me into your Hoosier family and legislative family and the whole politic of it all, capital or small p, that we are all in this together. And it's a journey that no one wants to make alone, and is tremendously lovely to see all of those who would like to take a walk with us and then share your expertise, as you've all said, with folks at home, so we can all help learn how to be better citizens for where we want this country and this region and this city to be. So.
Yes. And I would be remiss if we also didn't say, we stand on the shoulders of a lot of people before us. When you think of the David Longs and the Dan Leonards and the Jeff Espicks. And so when you talk about leadership, we've had leadership in Northeast Indiana for some time. Pillar in the Senate, Dennis Cruz. And I just happened to catch a blurb. I was watching the show and some of the old clips of those guys. And I think, we're here because they did their job. And it's just nice to continue that. And I don't know what the future is of a Primetime 39 on Friday nights, but I hope we can stay engaged. And Bruce, I enjoy your retirement.
Thank you.
Well deserved. And thank you for all the blessings it's been to be on your show multiple times.
Well, I thank you very much. And gentlemen, thank you. Phil?
Well, only because I have 2 years seniority on Matt and Travis, and there was like 10 years gap there that I was the only Democrat. I probably have appeared on the show more than anybody. I had to open and close because I was the only Democrat. But it was fun doing it all those years, and Lehman never did take me out for dinner after our Friday night doing
My
the show.
wife was normally along, and she said, "No, Phil, no, Phil."
It was a lot of fun. You're a true professional, and I always really appreciated how you handled everything, especially me. Kind of, I've got to give sometimes the opposite viewpoint on things, and you're always very generous and allowed us to do that. So thanks for hosting all these years. Appreciate it.
My pleasure. Travis, sir.
Thank you, Bruce. You've been a pleasure to work with, and on behalf of the Senate members, thank you for your service to the community. It's been great to have you, and I've just been amazed at how educated you are about bills that we didn't have anything to do with. And my fear was you would ask me a question about a bill that I was third or fourth author on, and I had no idea what the bill did. So, but thank you for your service.
You're quite welcome. It may have been your guidance that said, never ask me a question about a bill by number.
Yes, that is true. We still get that.
Yeah, it still comes up.
We still get that.
Yeah. Well, we thank you for your continuing efforts for connecting the dots here in this region and being able to, again, get us on the right place. And I'm sure this relationship between legislature and broadcaster will continue in new different ways as we move forward. So.
Let's hope so.
Thank you all for that, and thank you all so much for watching as well. This is an opportunity for us to say that there is a baton to be passed, and we hope you will be with us to see who carries on from here. But we will take the summer off and be moving to other programming we hope you'll enjoy. Indiana Week in Review will come your way next Friday night at 7:30. But for all of us at Primetime, behind and in front of the cameras, I'm Bruce Haines. Take care, and we will see you soon. All right, Rose Parade wave. Here we go. Thank you all so much.
Thank you.
Wow.
Welcome to Primetime 39, a program made possible by the financial support of viewers like you. Primetime 39 provides constituents with opportunities to discuss local, state, and national legislation with state legislators.
Several measures may be coming to Indiana voters in November based on actions by Indiana lawmakers in January. PBS 39 invites you to stay in touch with the State House on Primetime 39. Call in your comments and questions each week as Northeast Indiana area legislators join us to talk about the work of the current session. Be a part of the conversation throughout the legislative season here on Primetime 39, live Friday night at 7:30 on PBS 39. Our guests are from the Senate and the House for a conversation you can join from your house on this edition of Primetime. And we're glad you're with us as well. You can join the conversation with your questions and comments. That is Congressman Jim Banks. Welcome back, sir.
It's great to be here. I always look forward to these Friday nights.
And our guests are going to take us through it all, this busy week that was, on tonight's Primetime. With us this week, our 79th District Republican State Representative and House Majority Floor Leader Matt Lehman, and 80th District. PBS Fort Wayne is at risk of closure. State funding has been eliminated, and without federal funding, just about $1.60 per person each year, we could lose the ability to deliver life-saving emergency alerts, enriching local programming, and educational resources that families rely on. When local stations disappear, entire communities lose. Keep PBS Fort Wayne on air. Visit protectmypublicmedia.org and make your voice heard.